Got it. All right, everybody. So this is more of earlier this week on Monday, a few of us were in the webinar where I was kind of presenting on business plans, pitch decks, the subtle differences between the two. And so today's session is more of like, where are you at? People sharing from the worksheet that you worked on, and just getting feedback from not just me, but others in the Zoom as well, to just get kind of general feedback, if that makes sense, if that's intriguing, if there's like a little bit we can do to like play with the wording, with certain things that you've written into your document. So we can kind of set it up. I don't know if folks feel comfortable verbally sharing, or we can also do it so that you can screen share and we can kind of go through. But this is meant to be like a coaching session, where we're all kind of helping each other out and making sure that we're having different eyes on what your business plan. Right now it's probably like a little bit of a skeleton, like how it's looking, if it makes sense. So does anybody want to kind of start first, where we can start taking a deeper dive into your particular business? And I know we have some more people joining too, so it's not going to be like such a small group. So maybe we can do like maybe like 3 minutes of sharing or something like that, and a couple minutes for feedback. So maybe like 6 minutes a person or something like that, just to make sure we have enough time. Anybody? Should I just call on folks, or does anybody feel called to? I see a hand raised here with Janet.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, thank you.
I have
And
to
Janet,
say
do you
that
feel, oh, go
just
ahead.
before I start, I wanted to say that I'm actually a really big fan of your products. I have the
Oh,
Al Pastor spice mixture, and I actually have like a really small, all natural kind of corner store in my neighborhood in Echo Park. And I was like, you guys should get this product. Like last year, I was like, you guys should get this product. And I happened to go to an event for CLA last
yeah.
year, and at the theater.
Oh, okay. The
Yeah,
Ford. Yeah.
yeah, the Ford Theater, and so was able to get a little gift bag with them. Anyways, I highly recommend if you guys haven't tried them.
Aw.
They're so good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And what's the name of the neighborhood store that you've mentioned?
Oh, gosh, it's right next to Cookbook. I don't know the name of it because
Oh, okay. I know
do
which
you know
one
what
you're
I'm talking
talking
about?
about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
forgot the name of
sparse
it
in there,
too.
and it's not actually not
Yeah.
that sparse, but like they're but it's quite busy in there too. So
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. We'll follow up with them and be like,
yeah,
customers are asking for it.
yeah.
But Janet, tell us a little bit more about what your business is about, and maybe
Sure.
you want to share like a quick minute or the quick pitch, and then we can kind of get into some of the specifics of the form that you filled out, or the document that you filled out.
Yeah. So the product that so I'm looking to develop a product or start a
Mm-hmm.
company that at the start of it is going to be a product which is actually a meant to be it's an ingredient, and it's a starter, the base of making kimchi.
Mm-hmm.
So one, it's a product. It has all of the essential ingredients in it to use to add ingredients to so that you can ferment your own kimchi at home.
Yeah.
The second thing is I'm looking to develop, which I am calling in the business plan like a virtual product, which really
Mm-hmm.
is like an online resource or online platform, or maybe even used through social media, of recipe sharing, tips on
Mm-hmm.
how to ferment kimchi before, like salt ferment before you actually add any paste to it. There's just so many different ways of making kimchi, and it's like every recipe is different from home to home. So
Mm-hmm.
it's any of the sort of recipes that are online, it's really up to the author and like how they make kimchi at home, not necessarily like I don't think that end users who don't have their own like family recipe like understand that you can basically make your own kimchi
Yeah.
and customize it. So that's really what the online platform is meant to do, is just really inspire people to create their own
And
end product.
how long does it typically take to ferment kimchi, or to like is the fermentation time the same as if you were to go more of a traditional route versus your starter, or does it shorten the fermentation timeline at all?
The product doesn't shorten necessarily shorten the fermentation time. I think it's the idea of like small batching. So like the
Yeah.
amount of product that you're using to ferment. So that's, you know, I envision it being in a tube and like really only doing like a pound of kimchi at a time. A lot of the recipes that are online are like 20 pounds of cabbage and like, no, I mean, I live in a small Echo Park apartment. There's no way that I would ever, nor do I like want to eat kimchi 3 times a day, you know? So it's really just this idea of like taking whatever seasonal ingredients you have, or like if you have access to an Asian market, buying in smaller batches and then continually making it.
Yeah. So Janet, first thing that I just want to mention is like, if you're quickly pitching somebody what you're doing, maybe just kind of like, I help home cooks create kimchi, small batch kimchi at home with a fermentation kit that includes specialty ingredients from blah, blah, blah. Like just like 2 sentences, you know?
Yeah.
So something like that, that's just like real quick, that just like piques their interest. And then obviously they'll be like, oh, that's great. Like what, you know, do you just use cabbage, or do you, you know, and like kind of invite that conversation to start. But just like a short, succinct, like I create true to culture, plant forward meals for the home cook or whatever. Just like a quick, like, you know, I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah,
Like a quick,
definitely.
yeah, totally. So I
Like a
would say like,
tagline.
yeah, but it's more than a tagline. It's like a quick, like minute pitch. So that would be one thing for everybody to just kind of define what that is. It's your elevator pitch is what a lot of people call it. So like imagine you're literally in an elevator with somebody for 30 seconds, and like how do you succinctly pitch what you're doing and get them to fully, not, I mean, as much as possible, fully understand what you do. But I'd love to dive into the things that you filled out here. So like first one was make a list of the most important points, write a sentence or bullet for each point you want to make to include in your executive summary section. So what are kind of the main bullets that you would include that would kind of summarize everything regarding your business or regarding the plan?
Yeah, so just based off of the presentation that you gave, because I watched the recording of it, but I started with mission and vision under the executive summary. So the mission of Kimjang is, the name of it is called Kimjang. The mission of Kimjang is to build on the growing interest in cooking Korean cuisine at home. Our products are a bridge between the traditional techniques and flavors to the modern interests in cooking Korean food. Our vision is to connect the world through the shared love language of food through high quality products, thoughtful storytelling, and approachable techniques and recipes. Kimjang, so then I went into product description and like unique offering, value proposition, I guess.
Yeah.
Kimjang is a starter for small batching kimchi at home. It is an ingredient which is used as a base to add in order to customize your own kimchi. Kimjang also lives as a digital space with content as a source of recipe sharing, storytelling, a regional kimchi in Korea, and inspiration to create your own kimchi. And Kimjang is a virtual community of fermentation friends and curious home cooks.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, I'm having trouble reading today. Maybe I had too much coffee.
I love the furious home cooks. Like, that's awesome.
And then sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say for that one, I know that we talk about the unique, what makes your company unique in the next one. But like for the product or service, I don't know if I would describe like the online virtual platform of recipes as a product, unless like they're paying into something. Is it more of just like a free service that you provide, like a free educational service that you provide as a part of your general business, or is it like another product?
I don't know. I haven't really landed on that yet. I think that like if there was a paywall to like additional information, like maybe a Substack thing or that would be cool. But I also want to make it available to as many people as possible. So you probably saw them at Expo, but Smallhold really does, because I heard that they were huge at Expo this year. But like they do they do email blogs, and they're just so well informed. And it's not just information about their products necessarily. They do really cool storytelling. They talk about, they like link different like articles on the benefits of mushrooms and whatnot. And so I kind of have been thinking about that as well. Just like maybe it's just an email blog. I'm not sure. But I do think it's like a unique offering because, and I talk about this later in the plan, which is there is a comparable product that's out there where they're like basically like they don't have a virtual, they have a product, a paste, but it's not, there's no information on teaching people how to use it. So if you buy this paste, like you don't really know what to do with it. And I think
there's like no hand holding. It's just very much like, here it is, you bought your thing. You go handle your business. And then for that, in other existing product, do you have any like information that you've researched in terms of like how your ingredients might be different than theirs, or how you're sourcing the ingredients, or if you have like a culinary background and they're just like another business or whatever, like anything like that can kind of even more so set you apart?
Yes. So one of the main, so when I go into the second part, which is identifying the product or service, when I talk about kimchi, the food product, it's, kimjang is a paste concentrate made of base ingredients for kimchi. The essential ingredient is gochugaru, which is ground Korean red pepper. And we source the highest quality gochugaru from a very specific province in Korea, in which the mountainous region receives ample sunlight throughout the year and yields the plumpest ripe red peppers to sun dry for this essential Korean staple ingredient. So, so there is like a concentration on an ingredient. And then I think that in terms of like the executive summary, I don't have a culinary background. I do have a food and beverage background, but the product is being developed by a chef, in which they would be called out on the executive summary.
So I mean, you can definitely claim something like created by chef created, chef curated. I would definitely include the fact that you're using like a ingredient that is probably rare to find in a lot of products currently, and how specialty it is. That should be kind of like a little bit of like your hero. Like it's so silly, but even for the al pastor, like I tell people, oh, we use black garlic, pineapple powder, and people are like, pineapple powder? Oh my God, I haven't seen that. It's so silly. It's just pineapple powder. But that creates like a unique experience for them, because like there's no other seasoning in the marketplace that has like that sort of variety, or like tangerine oil. So I call out some of those like really rare ones, and that is really intriguing to people, because it sets me apart immediately. Like they know that every other seasoning has just like onion powder, garlic powder, general chili powder, salt, like cumin, very general things. And I get like really nuanced on the flavor. So I would definitely include some of that even in your executive summary and in your pitch.
Okay, that's great. That's very helpful.
All right, did we cover all the topics? There's the last one about the your leadership team. So you talked about you, right? And then a chef that you're working with. And this part,
that was the one that I didn't do.
Okay.
I ran out of
No,
time.
that's
Sorry.
Totally fine. And I guess I'll just like generally kind of for folks who have filled out or haven't filled out this part's so important, because what I mentioned in the webinar is that people who are investing in you, whether it's a bank that's lending you money, friends, family, an investor who's asking for a stake of the business, they're investing in you, and so they want to know more about your background. So there's somebody who's in the CLA network who was in the cohort last year, and she's making a pasta product now. And it's a very unique pasta product. Obviously, there's like so much pasta in this world, right? And hers are already like very unique flavors. But what I was trying to really like pull from her, and she didn't feel quite comfortable with it, is that she worked at Bestia for many years, which is like an acclaimed Italian restaurant here in LA. And I was like, I know you weren't like making the pasta there, but like you were creating the beverage program there, obviously eating there often, like learning techniques there. Like use that, say that as you're talking about like your leadership and your experience. So you mentioned, Janet, that you were in food and beverage for many years. Like anything that you can kind of bring to light here that can highlight your expertise, even though like you're not a culinary trained chef, like it doesn't really like matter specifically if you can say like, you know, for her case, it's like, oh, I've worked, you know, with Chef Ori at Bestia for the last like 5 years, and you know, I learned a lot there, and now I'm doing this. So, you know, something like that can kind of definitely help. Like for me, what helps me is I say, oh, I'm a New York Times recipe contributor and a best-selling cookbook author. And they're like, oh, you know, like it just automatically puts you in a place where they're like, okay, this person has done their, you know, they've put in the work. And you know, we're down to kind of you know, think this through a little bit more. It's not like you're just kind of like starting from nothing. So kind of brew on that and figure out like how you want to flesh that out a little bit more in that section. But thank you so much for sharing. I love it. I can't wait to try your product. So when it comes out, I'm gonna be bugging you. All right, anybody who wants to go next? Tasha, I see your hand up.
Hi, Jocelyn.
Hi.
I was in here. I'm not sure if it was Monday or Tuesday. I was a little confused what day it was, but I haven't seen the video yet, but I'm just gonna jump in
Okay.
and go for it. I've already kind of fleshed out some of these on my own, just because I'm already seeking the following steps. So I'll read it, and if you feel that you should stop me at any time, please do, okay?
Okay.
So and I'm gonna read based off what I have, okay? And then
Okay.
have to tweak it. So my vision is connecting my love for creating in the kitchen through quality, handcrafted, wholesome comfort foods with French culinary training approach. My products are plant-based cutie pies, which include seasonal roasted herb pot pies and sweet classic pies. Then moving into my own space called Magana's Cafe. That will include indigenous comfort food and international classics, with freshly baked pastries every morning for my community. And most importantly, providing people with purpose-driven jobs in my community with a plant-based food experience. So that's the first part.
The executive summary part. Okay.
Yes. I
Let's
currently,
keep going through. Go for
all
it.
right. I currently am a chef in training in culinary, baking, and restaurant management. I've won multiple competitions for baking and international cuisine. I am currently working with La Plaza Cocina in demos, and I also do volunteer service with a local street team by feeding the less unfortunate and bridging gaps between the less unfortunate. My ultimate goal is creating a nonprofit venue that showcases an immersive 5 cents plant-based experience in vibrant food, innovation, art, music, food healing, classes, community service, and most importantly, housing. The next thing, I think it was like about your team or something.
Yeah, so I feel like you kind of already touched on that based on you sharing that you're doing your culinary training right now and the competitions that you've won. And
Okay,
so that kind of would summarize like your leadership team and anybody else who's like specifically on your team.
got it.
Like years training that they have, why they're perfect for this particular growth of your
Okay.
business. One thing that I will say is it sounds like you have kind of like multiple businesses in
Yes,
one. Like you talked about the pies,
right,
and then
which
you
will,
talked about a restaurant that has pastries, which is a little bit different. So it sounds like the pies might be, unless
a
it's food
product,
service, like it's a product,
correct.
a packaged product. And then you have a restaurant, and then you also have a nonprofit. So you're lumping everything into one plan. And I am not sure if like that will translate well for people involved, because like if they're funding you, they're either funding you for the product line,
Right.
they're funding you for the restaurant separately, or they're funding you for the nonprofit, not all three at the same time, typically.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So you might need to, you can maybe like quickly note, like, you know, future goals
Exactly.
is this, but like this plan is specifically for the product line of pies and
Right.
getting these on store shelves, or you know, I need $50,000 because I need to rent a kitchen, a commercial kitchen space, and buy, you know, $10,000 worth of equipment to be able to produce my product at scale or
Right.
whatever, you know. So really narrow in on which one you're focusing on first. And
Okay.
it sounds like it might be the pies.
So I wanted to take advantage like of everybody that's here as a speaker, because I already know the steps. Basically, the product is for sure the pies. That's like what I want as my passive income to go towards the cafe. So as of now, I'm selling these pies like on a very super low scale, and but the goal first would actually be having the cafe and also having these pies present there, but distribute them at other coffee shops as a possibility. So it can have it in-house and then possibly other places. The ultimate goal, as you mentioned, would be having the venue. So I wanted to get a sense of, you know, I guess I can ask you, because you're a woman of many trades. How do you narrow down getting from one thing to another when you do have a lot of options? And then would you stick to first the smallest thing and then going from one thing to another, or or what have you learned in your experience of that?
I mean, what I've learned is that, you know, it definitely was helpful to start very like local here in LA and like build a presence. But ultimately, like my mission personally has always been to try to advance plant-based or plant-forward food that is culturally relevant. And I could do that in a restaurant in LA, or I could do that nationally with a product line and a cookbook and writing for New York Times. And so for me, it's like I had an opportunity to open a restaurant at the end of last year and I didn't. And I was like, I'm just not going to entertain that for the next like year and a half.
Okay.
Because I have the potential to create bigger impact in my personal mission and goal in life through this route. And I'm going to waste my time doing this restaurant when I could do this. I have to give myself that proper chance. And so even when I pitched, because I was getting investors for the restaurant, I was only pitching them the restaurant. I wasn't talking about my products also, I didn't want to give them a stake in that. You're only investing money in this place. I don't want to talk to you about all the other stuff, because you're going to get confused thinking that you're investing in Todo Verde as a whole, and they're separate entities. Like I have Todo Verde products as an S corp. I set up an S corp for the restaurant, which didn't happen. I ended up changing that to content creation. And then I have Todo Verde, just a general one that holds the intellectual property, like the logo, the trademark, like all that stuff. And so I would say for me, I don't know if others want to chime in here, but like initially I was a little bit like, oh, that's kind of a lot of things. And like, I don't know if other people were confused, or if you got it and you're like, this makes sense to me. But feel free to anybody else like jump in.
I think it's like what you were talking about last time, Jocelyn, about like the phases. Like you had your first phase of business being like your products, and then the next phase would be cookbook, or the next phase would be restaurant. So I think like Tasha has phases that she wants to go through, but correct me if I'm wrong, Tasha, but you're struggling to figure out which should come first, second, third, or which should be your priority first to lead you into the next thing.
Yeah, because I feel like the pies is like like you said, you hit it when you said nationally, you can have more products roaming around versus just one local spot. So that's like, that would be the goal, is to get that product out there.
Yeah. And then to Jasmine's point, just real brief on that, when I did the phases, they were always all food service. So it wasn't like the cookbook wasn't in there, neither was the product line. It was always, I'm going to start at farmers markets, it's food service. I'm going to do catering, still food service. And then the final stage of that growth is a restaurant, but always still food service. So just, there's still different business plans. If I were to do like, the product versus being an author or whatever, so still a little bit of a like difference there. But yeah, Tasha, I think that if you're already doing the pies, I mean, first of all, I would say that this is kind of a crazy time to open a food space, a food service space. Economically, like, just it's not the best time. So like, if you're able to continue to grow with the product line, get it in a few independent local stores, and start growing it that way and see if you can gain some traction. I would suggest that might be like the first best route to go, because you don't see a lot of that type of product available at stores. So it would definitely be unique.
Right. So, and in that sense, what I start off with my products are, or should it still be, my vision is connecting my love for creating in the kitchen through quality, handcrafted, wholesome comfort foods, which includes my product, cutie pies, period. This includes seasonal roasted herb pot pies and sweet classic pies.
Yeah. And just keep it all about the pies.
And
like
that's
why
it.
you're, and like why yours are different than others that you see on the market. If you're using any like specialty flours to make the crusts or things like that, or gluten-free options, or all these things. If you sell them frozen and then you can pop them in the oven and they're ready to go as a meal in like 15 minutes, like those are kind of the things that people want to hear. Like, oh, you're not only are you creating like a really unique product, there's a gap in the market for it, and then you're creating a situation where you're like helping home cooks easily make a meal for their family. So it's like about the ease, about the benefits of it, like why this is needed. So like you kind of have to hype it, like you need this, like this needs to happen. It doesn't exist.
Okay, and that would be included in that little elevator pitch? Like
like a really short, succinct, like I am a culinary trained chef who is creating, I'm just gonna say like gluten-free, would you say pot pies? Is that what you said?
So includes seasonal roasted herb pot pies and sweet classic pies. Everything is handcrafted to the milk. I make the milk, to the gravy, to the crust. Everything is seasonally picked that rotate for the depending on the potatoes and the squash, the pumpkin squash that I put. So I can totally do that and just tag it onto this.
Totally. Okay, great. So I think that that's going to be a good iteration for the next round too, and feel free to reach back out if you want me to like take a quick look at it too.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Tasha. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next person. Whoever wants to hop in.
I'll go.
Okay.
Sorry. I had to kind of go into, I don't have my headphones and I hopped into the restroom. But so since actually Mondays or the last time we met, listening to like your step-by-step, I posed a question to you. But it was really eye-opening because I am kind of all over the place. So if I were to pitch, I really don't have a product that I can pitch, right? So there's things that a few things that I'm I would like to create a line, a food line, which would be my faux show no. And then faux show no means faux show no beef, faux show no chicken, faux show no whatever the case may be. For instance, there's a paella that I make, so it'll be a mimic of a seafood paella, but faux show no seafood, yada yada yada. And then certain ingredients that I wouldn't prepare these items with. Similar to Tasha, I am, on a mission as far as, for the community, bringing awareness, the foods that that I prepare, the foods that I'm preparing, very specific about the types of ingredients that I'm choosing, and why I'm choosing them for the purpose of holistic, or that's going to bring some health benefits, reducing inflammation, reducing mucus, or anything that's going to help heal our body. So right now I am having to reconstruct my whole executive summary and mission statement and everything, because it really is very broad. It is like I need to focus on just the one thing to drive the business and get the brand out there, and then start, then be able to add on. So I like what you did, starting with juices, and then you had, okay, and then whatever, 6 months, we're going to do this. And then 6 months later, you're going to do that. So I need to go back and really look at that. So I wanted to just chime in. I'm not going to, hold the floor, but just want to chime in and let you know where I am. But it really is reconstructing the whole concept of the business, because I'm just kind of all over the place.
Yeah. So right now, are you currently providing, is it like prepped meals, or are you doing like a food service, like a restaurant? And is that changing? Oh, you're doing all of that.
It's a little bit of everything. And it's not like there's people knocking down the door, because there's still also that marketing, like having people to know that I even exist, right? And what I do. I do have a few clients, but they're very few. So right now I will do meal prep. I also catering. So I have a catering this weekend, and then the catering component, although someone reached out to me, I let them know, like, hey, I am a completely whole plant, but it sounds like you may want meat, combination. So they're like, yeah, we do. So I will, like, okay, I will,
still make something,
do that, right? So now it's like, okay, how do you promote yourself as this vegan whole plant, but yet you will make these concessions for clients? So I need to kind of structure that, because also I am a chef, so I do all things food, but I wanted to focus, put all the focus on this, whole plant alkaline providing that service. So that's why I asked you the question too about, when has there ever been a time where, yes, you knew you wanted to provide flavorful ingredients that you don't see that represent your culture, but was there any time where, hey, my rent is due and I know I can provide this to make those ends meet, or I can go to this community because they have the money or the resources? So that's where I'm kind of like, how long do I stay in true to the mission, but I need to pay my rent. Like I need to offer meat options to a client that I know I have a gig that is going to, a catering gig that's going to, pay me, versus like, no, I can't, because I got to stay true to.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like going back to what you said initially, it is marketing. So, in the however many years, like 8 years or 7 years that we were catering, like we never did anything that wasn't vegan.
Right.
And sometimes people were like, oh, okay, well, can you help us like find somebody who would be willing to do that? And I would help them find like a chef friend who does meat, and be like, all right, they're gonna provide a certain element, but we're gonna provide the rest. But that was very rare. Like we were pretty like straightforward and like, no, we just don't do that.
Right.
And there's enough clientele out there where like, if that's really where you want to go and how you want to promote your business, like there's enough clientele out there
Yeah.
that can still make that like a viable business. But it might be that the adjustments that you have to make are like where you're marketing yourself and who exactly is that target demographic. We didn't really get into target demographic, I don't think, when we were all speaking on Monday. Maybe I can't remember anymore, but like really honing in on like, is it like for me, it's a 25 to 34-year-old Latina woman, grew up in a low income to middle income household and neighborhood, and then was able to go to college, was able to get a good paying job with discretionary income, can pay for quality items that are like maybe a little bit out of her parents' price point, but because she has a more steady income, she's able to kind of splurge on things now. So really thinking about like, who exactly is this person? And then once you know that, it's like that kind of helps inform like, all right, like this is what the name of the business should be. This is where I should be marketing myself. These are the types of events I should be doing and the areas of the city I should be. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make is like, oh, like what I do is like everybody loves it. It's good for everybody. And if you do that, then you're all over the place and you have like no like center point, you have no like North Star that's like guiding you. You're just kind of going in all directions, trying to get everybody. And that just never works.
That before you even said that, yeah, that is ding, 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 because I'm like, but I want to serve everybody. But listening to your story, just that, like, you told it very well, and I'm drawing from that. So it's definitely going back to the drawing board using your story, your skills, your skill set, and writing that out and staying true to that. So again, I don't want to hold up any other time, but thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing, and I'm excited to see how it evolves.
Okay, thank you.
All right, who would like to go next?
I can go next. Or Tracy,
Okay.
if you wanted to go ahead.
You know what? This will only take a second because I have not done my homework. But I do have, like, once everyone has the opportunity to share, I do have a couple of questions for you based on like what Tasha shared, things that will help me. But I was able to read the questions, but I have not like written any responses.
Do you have like a general kind of pitch or something that like a business that you already kind of understand the direction you want to go in?
I do. So I do bake cookies, and I do want to I started and applied to the program because I work full time and have a family, and so I saw like farmers markets as like a for me, not even just a place to start. Originally, like I could see myself doing that for a while, but then eventually maybe doing some like catering. Like I had some orders for baby showers or birthday parties or things like that. Like that's sort of where I see myself. What like struck me when you were talking to Tasha was thinking about and also Janet, like what makes this unique? Like, oh, do you have this background, or and that's where I feel like I don't know what that is for me. I'm not in the food and beverage industry. I love baking. I've baked since I was younger. So I'm trying to find what that is.
When you were baking when you were younger, was it with your parents or family members?
Yeah, it was with my mom. Yeah. So
and did she learn how to bake from her mom or pass down any recipes?
she did pass down recipes. So I did get the baking from her, and I baked pretty continuously, like through high school and like just always been something I enjoyed doing. So I've been, like even in one of our first like workshops, that question has been in my mind as we were doing some other like worksheets, is what is that? What is special about that? I mean, what I get from people that have bought cookies from me and friends is like, oh, these are homemade. Like that's their first reaction. Like these have lots of butter and they're homemade. Like they give, but I'm still looking for like what, like that thing is where where I've been thinking about. That didn't hold me up this week. I really just did not do the homework. It wasn't that question has been in my mind for a few weeks. So I'm just trying to think about that. I don't have a huge menu. It's like I like trying new things, but I feel confident in 5 different kinds of cookies.
And how long have you been making those 5 types of cookies? Or is there like a hero one that you've been making like your whole life?
You know what? The sugar cookie that I didn't realize. I was going through some old pictures last year, and I'm old. And so I had a picture, like an actual picture that I developed at the pharmacy that I made when my husband and I were dating. And I'd made these Valentine's cookies. And I wish back then I knew I'd want to bake cookies because the quality would have been better. They were just scattered on a table. So it's the same recipe from like 27 years ago. In the chocolate chip one.
Yeah. So
But
first of all, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, even that is really special. I mean, for someone who really loves nostalgia, like I buy into that. So like to say that you have this photo from way back when of something that you're selling now currently, to know that you've got that rapport and that you have these memories, if you kind of worked that into your branding, I'd really be into it.
That is good to know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Tracy, like it feels like maybe you're working through a little bit of like imposter syndrome, which I think we all face here and then, and that's fair. It's like we all kind of like think, do I have all the things that people would want to hear? And I think you totally do. Like, I mean, honestly, I would really frame it as like, I've been baking my whole life. I learned, our family, 3 generations have been, baking cookies at home for our families. And I was able to win over my husband with these, sugar cookies on Valentine's Day. Like you could totally like spin things into a way where it's like very like intriguing to people or captivating to people. Also the fact that you're saying like the first things that come to people's mind are like, these have a lot of butter and they're homemade. Like that could be, a part of the name or the tagline or something like that. I'm like trying to, as you were saying it, I was like, what could you say to like capture that and keep sharing it with people? But yeah, there was there was a place here in Highland Park. It's a bakery that closed down, but they're like open in a few different countries. And they had on the side of their building, it was like, oh my God, it was something with butter. What was it? But it was like something like everything in here has butter. So if you're vegan, like don't even look over here. Everything has butter, So, and it was kind of funny, and people would read that, walk by and read it and laugh. So, you could kind of play on that in that, like, we're the best homemade cookies you'll ever have, or something like that.
Okay.
Or your business could even be like, a really great like cookie dough that people bake at home.
Yeah, that's true. No, that is helpful. And I did, Yeah, I think the imposter syndrome too, like this is such a great group of women. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like yeah, like that is helpful. And I did, in one of the other exercises in thinking about like a name, I have been pulling words like comfort. I'm going to add like the homemade, like I didn't even put that. Like it's taking a while for me to like process things but it's coming together. I find myself being like 3 weeks behind. Like I'm in this session, but to actually find the time to brainstorm, or like it's like writing a draft. Like some of the things I wrote just 6 weeks ago have changed a little and evolved, so that's kind of where I'm at. But I appreciate that, because I was like, well, like, I don't know sort of what's different, but I'm gonna really think about like what I'm doing and what the
Yeah.
cookie is.
And I would encourage you also to, like, everyone here, if you haven't yet, start with that exercise of like, who exactly is your target demographic? Like, give that person a name, like know their exact age, and their age shouldn't be like 30 to 60. It's like like 9 to 10 year gap. It's either like they're in their 20, even saying generally 20s is tough. That's why it's better to say like 25 to 34, because that's like post college, like, a little bit more established. Then you have 35 to 44. Like, and then figure out like, who is this person? Like, what kind of car do they drive, or did they take public transportation? Do they go to the farmer's market? All that's what are they listening to? Is there like, commuting? What podcasts, what social media platforms do they follow? And once you really like hone in on that person, sometimes the name of the business, your menu, even the names of the menu items, like really start to flesh out, because like now you know who you're speaking to,
Yeah,
So that's always like a really good first step.
that does make a lot.
Once you have your product, like I guess the first step is like, you want to do cookies. That's the first step. And then the second step is like, who's going to buy these cookies? Now let me just create a whole business around this person.
That's helpful. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Jocelyn.
Yes. Actually, first, I didn't want to forget this question, but I want to know how you actually came up with your avatars, like how you came up with these like people that you were like, this is definitely my target. I remember you touched on it last time, but how do you go about doing that research? Like I find myself Googling like weird stuff, like who's eating pickles? Like, and it's like, is that going to get me the most efficient information? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
so,
so I know last time I also mentioned like Nielsen's too. That always has like
yes.
good data too, because you can kind of see like which category like people are really looking at. So, right now people who are like plant-based eaters are like a really huge category for folks. So like you can start to get like some data points there. Or like, are there people who are just like in the natural food space, or is it people who are just more in like comfort food space or whatever, and kind of hone down there. But like initially when I first started, I was a target demographic. So it was like easy for me because I was that person. I'm like 25 to 34. I'm going to be 40 this year. So I've like aged out of my current target demographic. Which is funny, because sometimes I have like younger staff who are like, we should be on TikTok. And I'm like, what? I don't use that.
Yeah.
But for the 3 specific people, did I mention this on Monday? I have like 3 specific,
And they have
So
names and everything. And I'm like,
Paola, Stephanie, and KR.
yeah.
And they're actually customers of mine who have like become friends of mine. And I've been able to kind of like flesh it out a little bit over time. Because I always started off with like, this is for somebody like me at that age, right? And then I obviously like was able to really identify with people of that demographic, and they would become regulars. And then I was like, these are the people who are like most loyal to the brands, and like I need to make sure moving forward, like we're always thinking about these 3 people.
Yeah.
So you'll kind of get to see like who some of the regulars are, like the more you put yourself out there, and you could always refine. It's not like you need to know all the answers at the beginning, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of always speculative until you put yourself out there and start selling.
Right.
And then you're just like, actually, like my target demographic is actually like a white man who's like 40 something. Like you don't know.
Yeah. So I guess like ideally we could start with who we might want to market to and get to know those people, that group of people, and then like kind of take it from there, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And then like think about like the name and how the like I know Todo Verde is like not an easy name to pronounce. In fact, this year I thought about changing the name. But then I was like, no, like my target demographic can pronounce it just fine, you know?
Mhm.
And so there's a bunch of other business names out there that are like not as easy to read. Like I should just keep it as is. I have like a good customer base already knowing this brand. So yeah, you'll create everything really like thinking about their lived experience.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will go.
Mhm.
I kind of found myself rambling a bit, so we'll just see what we got here. But Third Gen is a Caribbean-inspired handcrafted condiments and sauces line made with local ingredients. Flavor and heritage are the 2 words I want to come to mind when you hear Third Gen. As a 3rd generation of Caribbean immigrants, my identity and palate are multifaceted. I grew up experiencing American food through the lens of a Haitian grandmother. I was accustomed to spicy things, briny things, salted things, and crispy fried meats, stews, and rice, never without beans. All these delicious foods that I loved always started with a base of flavor and served with condiments that bring heat. So from there, I was going to go into the description of my products.
Mhm.
And the current products include pickles, epis, and pepper sauce. So pickles is a spicy pickled cabbage. It's the perfect topping for any dish looking for a briny bite with a kick. Epis, green seasoning, is your go-to marinade, setting the tone for a flavor-filled dish. And pepper sauce is my rendition on the Caribbean hot sauce made with habanero peppers.
So question for you,
Mhm.
because these are not things that like I'm not familiar with those particular items that you're mentioning. So
Mhm.
are they Haitian specific things like not I guess recipes that have been around
Mhm.
for generations that like I'm just not aware of because I just haven't eaten enough of that food, or are they things that you're kind of pulling from flavors and like creating as a new?
Mhm. These are all like these 3 items are all typical to a Haitian household, but everyone has
Hmm.
their own. In the same way that kimchi, everyone has their own like way
Yeah.
of creating it and making it. Same thing with the epis, same thing with the pickles, and same thing with the pepper
Hmm.
sauce.
Hmm.
So it's just like those are like the 3 condiments you'll find in like any Haitian household, but everyone's is going to be different.
Yeah. So I would probably mention something like that at the very beginning,
Okay.
just because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, anybody, but I haven't seen like Haitian food really um like get that limelight in the way that it probably should. And so I'm just like not really familiar with like
Yeah.
what those recipes or like specific condiments look like.
Yes. So Haitian food especially is not on the West Coast at all.
Yeah.
It's definitely on the East Coast more so. So it's like if I brought that to that audience, they'd
Mhm.
most likely understand or know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So it is a little bit, and I'm from the East Coast. So
Mhm.
it's like I'm trying to figure out, since I'm going to be selling this here, how do I now bring this new, like, it's not new, but it's new to
Yeah,
people here. Like,
exactly.
how am I going to introduce this? And also in a way that makes sense. And I'm not like, I had talked about this last time, but like appropriating, because I don't speak Creole. I was born in America. So I'm not like culturally, I'm Haitian American.
Mhm.
Um, But when you're bringing something that someone doesn't know, they're expecting that it's like authentic. I hate to use that word, but like, you know, like from the place, and it's not, you know. So,
but I really loved what
Mhm.
you said earlier in that you're making it with local ingredients. So
Mhm.
I think that, you know, it's a little bit of an educational piece, since you're saying like, you know, it's not a familiar food category here on the West Coast.
Mhm.
So it's kind of letting people know like these condiments or these things have been around in Haitian cuisine for generations. Like you're about to get schooled. You don't know about this?
Yeah.
So a little bit of that, like I know what's up, and you know, I've tested it with like the Haitian community. It's like, you know, these beloved flavors, like stuff like that, I think would
Mhm.
definitely help. Um, and then the fact that you're doing it, because that's what a lot of immigrant families did. Like when my parents migrated here from Mexico, they didn't have access to all the same exact ingredients that they did,
Yeah.
you know, from the regions that they grew up in. So you have to kind of reinvent it based off of
Mhm.
like what you have available, which is kind
Mhm.
of like even similar to, you know, like what Janet is doing is like you could create kimchi with like something you buy at the farmer's market here,
Mhm.
locally grown, LA. So it's like that still is really intriguing to people in that you're kind of merging, you know, a like cuisine with regionality.
Mhm.
um I think you can definitely voice that a little bit more.
Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
Should I continue, or I
Yeah,
mean,
go for it.
um, what makes your company unique? Okay. What makes Third Gen unique is that it evokes the feeling of home,
Hmm.
by encouraging the experience of enjoying a meal with community. And when you're enjoying it on your own, you're also reminded of love, family, and intimacy of things homemade. Um, that I'm trying to also like, this is like talking about the brand more so
Hmm.
than the product, but all of it is relative.
Yeah, so for, I mean, for this one I would even get specific and like for the product, it's like the why, because so you're kind of more sharing about like the general experience of like cooking at home, which I think is fine to include too. um but because you're also educating folks on how to use the product here, I would also mention like the ways in which you would use this. So like the, you know, the pepper sauce, like you can add it to any of your favorite dishes, like even um
Mhm.
like I'm thinking about Fly by Jing, right?
Yeah.
You know, she shows her product being used on anything from like pasta to pizza, like to Mexican food. Like it's just like, you know, obviously she really highlights Asian flavors and, you
Mhm.
know, but also keeps it pretty broad. So like it might be a little bit of an educational piece of like you could add these to all these things and it's going to have notes of like a sharp habanero pinch with, you
Mhm.
know, balanced by you know, any other ingredients that you have on there that kind of like harmonize with it. So have them like imagine what that flavor is going to taste like, because
Mhm.
like they've never tried it before possibly, right? So they don't have
Okay.
anything to like base it off of.
Yeah.
um so I would include that, like best pairings are XYZ. But you can also like for the tinga, I always mention, because not a lot of people are familiar with tinga unless you're
Mhm.
like from Mexico City or like know Mexican food pretty well. And so I always mention like, oh, it's a traditional like dish from Mexico City that's typically eaten with chicken on a tostada.
Mhm.
Um, but I also love to use this product on like, you know, sprinkle it on French fries, and I've added it to frijoles de la olla, like my cooked beans. I've added it to, um, you know, my soups and broths and stuff like that. So you can
Mhm.
kind of like get them to be like, oh, okay, like I can understand now how to use that. And I also share like it's flavor notes are chipotle, tomato, onion, and garlic. It has other things,
Mm.
but like those are the main stars of that.
Mhm.
And that'll kind of get them to understand like, oh, okay, I could use like that would be really good on fries.
Yeah.
So I think you might need to do a little bit more of that in this section.
Okay. Cool. Definitely will do that. And then as for the leadership team, it's just me. So I just shared like the founder, Jasmine, is a food stylist and recipe developer who has always had a passion for cooking. Her love of spicy food and desire to connect with her Caribbean ancestry has brought her here. Third Gen is her way of embracing her multi-layered identity as a queer Caribbean American and the foods she grew up on.
Yeah, I love that. That's
Thank
really
you.
great. And then any other like little points that you can note there, like how long you've been cooking these recipes at home, just any things like that.
And also
Will
my
also,
family owns a Haitian restaurant in New York. And so that might be something I could
yep,
potentially add in here too.
yeah, that. So always think about it as like you're trying to really add anything there that's going to give you credibility.
Yeah.
Because the people reading this they might know you, but typically they're like complete strangers.
Yeah.
And so you really have to kind of put yourself out there in a way that's like I wouldn't always just like blurt out these things, but that's the only way that people are actually going to take me seriously. So yeah, totally mention the restaurant. Like if you grew up going to the restaurant, helping out.
I was managing it for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think a little bit of that like imposter syndrome here too, because you were like, it's kind of like appropriation. What? Your family has a Haitian restaurant
I
on the
know,
East
but it's
Coast,
like, I feel so, it's like also, I come from people that are so stubborn, and it's like, if there's certain boxes you don't check, then you just not it, and they will call you
yeah,
out, but like, that's just the reality of it. Like there are always going to be haters, so you just
there
gotta
are
like deal
always
with
gonna
it,
be haters. Yeah.
but it's so hard sometimes.
I mean, you could still like really give yourself that credibility with grace.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
not ego. It's just like
Yeah.
that's your lived experience, and you
Yeah.
deserve to do something that brings you joy, that brings other people
Yeah.
joy. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Jasmine.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Anybody want to go next? There's 3 folks left.
I could go next.
Okay, Blanca, go for it.
I was able to see the recording. I wasn't part of Monday's session due to time conflict, but I really enjoyed watching it. And I kind of do like a draft of like a pitch to investors. So it's ever wanted to drink a water-based drink flavored with fruits and vegetables found locally around South LA area. South LA Oasis focuses on providing refreshing and tastiest aguas frescas made with real ingredients locally sourced from South LA community while providing a learning space for young adults entering the workforce. Description of product. Our drinks will be made using whole and locally grown ingredients. These ingredients will be sourced mainly from our farmers market, which will help provide drinks to locals in the South LA area while supporting local farmers and keeping the dollars within our communities. There are already businesses that provide aguas frescas. Unfortunately, some of these drinks are powder based and artificially flavored. Some of these alien additives that provide little to no nutrients to the human body. Our product is easy to create. This product can be executed by training recently graduated high school students looking for that first workforce experience and allowing them to grow and expand their skill sets they'll need as they go to higher education or professional workforce.
Okay. So my question is, do you already have a kitchen space where you would be like training and working with people? Like the workforce that you're talking about, or is this like for the future?
This is like for the future. So currently I don't have like a space set up, but there's this central hub in our community where we have access to a kitchen, and this will be where we'll be making our product to sell
Mhm.
at farmers market as a pop-up stand. My vision is to at some point open up a storefront somewhere in
Mhm.
South LA, but I see that happening maybe 3-5 years from now.
Yeah.
We're just gonna start like just selling al frescas at farmers market and any
Yeah.
events going on around the South LA community.
Okay, great. Great. So, just a quick note on like what you shared, because you shared like the executive summary and then you shared the product or service. It felt a little too redundant between the two. So like
Mhm.
find a way to like maybe still share similar information, but like define it a little bit differently for like the product or service specifically. So you're not they're not reading the same thing again.
Okay.
And then what I would suggest is like there's a company called Agua Bonita. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. But they it's a CPG line, so it's a canned agua fresca. And like what they do is they're based up in Central California and they go to local farms. So I know you're talking about farmers markets, but she goes to like farms in Central California and like gleans any produce that they can't sell that's gonna spoil. So that might be kind of like an interesting place for you to kind of consider is like you go to the farmers market at the end of the market and you're gleaning like it could be something random like that you're like, oh, I've never made agua fresca out of this, but that might actually like work. And then we'd be preventing this from becoming food waste and giving it another little life cycle. Um, so that, you know, just something to consider that like upcycling right now is huge. And this goes for anybody, right? Like even for, you know, like the habaneros that you're using, Jasmine, in your hot sauce, right? It's like they could be habaneros that were like on the brink of going bad, but like you're gonna cook them and they're gonna, you know, they're gonna be preserved. So, you know, upcycling is like really huge right now. So just like consider that as like you're figuring out how you're gonna source your ingredients and how you share that with potential investors.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. And then I know you shared pretty much like what makes you unique and that like other folks are using a lot of dried powders and stuff like that to make their agua fresca, and then you're using whole fresh fruit. For sweetening your agua fresca, what are you using as a sweetener?
We're planning to just use brown sugar since that's a healthier sugar compared to white.
Mhm.
And but
Mhm.
our main sweeteners will be creating our own simple syrups, create using honey,
Mhm.
maybe look sourcing out the honey, or even using cane, sugar cane from
Yeah.
gardens that we have cane growing at our garden site, and also using piloncillo.
Yeah. Yeah. I use piloncillo as for our agua fresca sweetener with todo verde when we were doing food service. So I used maple syrup. It was crazy expensive. And then we ended up switching to reduced to piloncillo syrup, which we made in-house. So yeah, I think that would be great. Just like a tip, try to get the lighter shade of piloncillo because the darker one like will make the whole batch like if you have horchata, it'll you know be brown, you know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think that that's a really good start. And then those things will be ones that separate you from the others for sure. Anything else that you want to share?
Um, I think for the part where it says describe your leadership, I was kind of having a hard time trying to make it work. So I had written my draft as I have no college certificate or higher education titles that titles me as a cook or a chef. I am someone who, through experience and chances of learning through free culinary trainings offered by a nonprofit, I was able to learn certain skill sets used in the cooking in the culinary industry. I was
Hmm.
taught by different cooks and a French chef, and was able to ex- and, and was able to learn how to execute recipes with confidence and wanting to learn how to better myself.
Hmm.
So I have no real training of going like compared to Tasha
Yeah.
going to a college or a higher education. All the training I have comes from a nonprofit, and through the various trainings I've been able to take and the mentorship I was able to have from the cooks and chefs that came into the program years past.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's great. And honestly, I don't even think you have to mention that you don't have formal training. You can say something like, I've trained under chef so and so for the last 3 years or 2 years, and have worked in the culinary program through XYZ nonprofit for a year or whatever. You can say something like that. And you don't have to be like, but I don't have it, but I did these things to try to justify it. Like, just say that you did those things, and that's kind of it. Leave it at that.
Okay,
Cool.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have Marcy and Maria left.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry I missed Monday, but I'm trying to catch up. So this is just the draft of what I have.
Okay.
So for the first question, identify your product or service. Marcy Sweet Treats is a cottage business that offers a that offers a variety of baked goods such as cookies, muffins, cakes, and pastries. We specialize specifically in sugar cookies, making a variety of flavors. Our mission is to make every occasion extra sweet. We offer sweets for all types of occasions, and then that's where I stop because I'm trying to think of more. For the describe what makes your company unique. Our variety of flavors, clean ingredients, and the creators' art or passion is what makes Marcy Sweet Treats unique. The most common flavors in the market are typically chocolate and vanilla. We have experimented outside the box and implemented unique flavors into our sugar cookies. Some of these flavors include guava, chocolate, abuelita, mocha, a variety of berries, etc. And then for the last one, so far I have been in the food and beverage service for 5 years and counting. This has expanded my passion for the kitchen. This passion stems from the love I have for baking and experimenting with flavors. My business partner has also been in the industry for 3 years. And then I stopped there because I wanted to share what I had so far.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good start. And I do like the uniqueness of the flavor profiles that you mentioned, like the guayaba and the abuelita, or some people might know that more as like Mexican chocolate.
Yeah,
because I don't know if you could say abuelita because if that's a brand, but I mean, unless you use
right.
abuelita in it.
I totally see your point.
And because I used to have like a hot chocolate that I would call abuelita, but it was just like in food service. But if you're doing a product, then you might have like a conflict there.
Okay.
But yeah, I definitely think that is like a key thing to mention, like right off the bat, like the unique flavor profiles that you have and the backing of like the years of experience that you have in the industry, I think are like your strong points that you can mention. And then also you mentioned like special ingredients.
Yeah, so that's kind of a new thing. So I was working with dairy, butter, and I recently made the change to plant-based. So it's kind of like I'm going back steps, I guess. So now I have to, like you said, find the right demographic for this. So it's a whole process.
Yeah, no, and you've already reformulated the recipes to use plant-based ingredients.
Yeah. So this
Okay,
came
great.
after some like medical issues that I had. So I was like, oh, my business has to go along with this change, right? And a lot of my customers tell me like, maybe you should offer both. So it's all big. It's all like, it's a lot to think about.
And when you try the vegan versus non-vegan versions, like, is it a drastic difference between the two, or a noticeable difference?
Like within flavor or within like selling?
Yeah, like flavor, texture, like.
Yeah, definitely it is. I would say it's a bit of a challenge when it's like vegan, but
yeah,
I love challenges, so it's fine.
yeah. Yeah, because I was about to say, like, if it's not very much of a difference, you can always like say, like, I changed my business, like I was dealing with some health issues, decided to change my business to follow along with like my lifestyle change, and my customers didn't even notice that there was a difference, like something like that, right? Like that would be kind of interesting. But yeah, like I do like that part of your story, because as this session is called, like, storytelling is everything, and that's what we've been doing, right? Like talking about, like, our families, our work backgrounds and stuff like that, like even our health journeys are a part of our storytelling, because like people will identify with that.
Right.
And so like that is a part of your pitch. And so I think you can definitely say that, like, I started my business doing XYZ, and then I had to adapt to make sense of like what I was going through. An example of that is actually, there's a really well-known vegan chef. He has restaurants all over the world. His name is Matthew Kinney. He had many restaurants in New York, and they were not plant-based. He was serving like meat, and just had like a really successful restaurant. And then he decided to go vegan, and all his restaurants adapted to his new lifestyle. People were shocked by that. I mean, there's what's that restaurant? I'm spacing on the name right now. Madison Park or Madison in New York. They were also a restaurant that was not plant-based, and then they switched to a full plant-based menu. And so like that's shocking for people, like, whoa. And then they want to try it because they're like, I want to see how close that this person was able to get it to 11 Madison Park. Thank you. Get it to like that flavor point that like we all want, but in a plant-based version. So I think that you can absolutely incorporate that into the written piece of your business plan.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take from that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else that stood out to anybody, whether it's about Marcy's business plan or anything else? Like, we have a few minutes left to just kind of like keep kind of thinking through these business plans.
I guess just I didn't get a sense of like how long an executive summary should be. Like, should we keep it short and sweet, or
Yeah, if you're writing it out in paragraphs, like I would say like 2 paragraphs at most, maybe 3 if you really needed to, but it's like, how can you really summarize this? When I do it in a pitch deck, it's just a few bullets. Literally, like it'll be a slide, and it's just like when I did the one for the restaurant, it was like Todo Verde's first brick and mortar. It had the address, Highland Park, 50 seats indoor, 25 seats outdoor, whatever it was, 800 square feet, this much rent, this much lease terms, and then how much money I was asking for, and for the like a real brief, like, here are the terms. And so like they just look at that slide and they're like, okay, this sounds good, what's up, like, let's keep going,
Got it. Okay.
But if I was just kind of like, and then I've had another business plan where it's more written out, and I'm just like, this was for a Boyle Heights location that I was looking at, and it was just kind of like, Todo Verde is going to be the first plant-based Mexican restaurant in the Boyle Heights neighborhood of XYZ. There's a metro station, like, adjacent from this restaurant. This is how much I'm asking for. This is what, just like a real brief summary. It wasn't even like getting into the menu, like none of that. And at that point, it's kind of suggesting that they already know my business to a certain extent, but then the next slide gets into like, who am I and what the business is about.
Okay. So more detail, you start digging a little bit deeper as you go into the business plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if I had like, if I didn't have that credibility at all, like I would probably write like, you know, LA-based chef and New York Times recipe contributor, or led by something like that. So in that executive summary, I'm already giving myself that credibility that they need to see to be willing to like put dollars behind me. You know, so just like a real brief thing. Really like, you know, Janet, I know earlier when you were like pitching and I was like, try to keep it succinct. Like I recently did like a fake pitch with my friend Ashwarya from Brightland Olive Oil. And like I started pitching to her, and as soon as I was like, oh, my name's Jocelyn, I've been a chef for the past X years, and she was like, girl, you're saying too much. It's too much. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, it's too much. I was like, what am I supposed to say? And she's just like, don't say like you've been doing this business for that long. It makes your business seem old. And like, why haven't you gotten funding before? Because the CPG line is new. So like, she was just kind of like, and then really, if you're ever in like rooms with people or on Zooms or whatever with folks, and you have 30 minutes, she's like, typically like half of the time is like, you're just getting to know them. And like investors love that. You're asking them, obviously you've researched them as much as you can. And you're kind of like, oh, I saw you invested in like these 3 other companies. Like, are these the type of companies you get most excited about investing in? What are you looking to, you know, in the next couple years, like looking to invest into or whatever? Like you're asking them questions. Oh, I saw you went to school. I saw you're connected to so-and-so. And you're just trying to like build a connection, especially if they're strangers. And then the last 15 minutes, she's like, it's cool if you get to like present an actual like pitch deck, but sometimes it's just verbally sharing. And she was like, and the 5, I have like 5 key points that I mentioned, like either 2 or 3 of them will be like ones that are specific to me, like why I'm the one to be able to do this. And the other like 2 or 3 will be specific to the industry. Like this is a X billion-dollar industry as per like, you know, Nielsen's or IRI or whatever. And like, this is a perfect opportunity to invest in this because the industry has seen like this spike of percentage of sales in this category. So like some of it is like broad data. And then like 2 or 3 of those points would be like, and our growth has been like this percent in the last year, and we're growing exponentially, and we're adding on 3 new team members, and like you have to join this round. We have these other folks already committed to the round, you know, like that type of language. Yeah, so that was like really eye-opening for me because I thought it's like, oh, I have 30 minutes to like do the little dance and like spiel and like, you know, get their attention. And she was just like, no, don't do that to yourself. You're going to waste your time. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I work in the sales space and I kind of feel like in food and beverage and coffee. And I feel like when I'm meeting with a potential lead or opportunity, I kind of just naturally do the same thing where it's really about like figuring out what they like interviewing them. Yeah. And it kind of takes the pressure off of being like, let me tell you about our company, you know?
Exactly.
And then it feels like you're listening to their needs more too. But yeah.
And then you figure out if you can fit into that, right? Yeah, somebody was, I was listening to a podcast not too long ago, and it was like, how do you as a salesperson like sell somebody a pen? And it's like, you can't just be like, look at this pen, it's the best pen, you have to use it, it has the best ink and la 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 la. It's kind of like you just have the pen in your pocket and you're like, oh, how's your day going? Like, you know, and somebody might start talking and like, or they're writing and just be, you know, like you have a product. Oh, I have this product, you know, we did XYZ, like I'd love to send it to you, give it a try. Like that's more of like the relaxed approach to sales versus like just trying to be in their face, like you need to buy this pen right now, sale.
I don't think anyone enjoys being on the receiving end.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So it's a fine line we have to walk with that. Anything else, anyone, before we're pretty much at time, but any other final thoughts from anybody?
I have a quick comment and
Yeah.
possibly question. So you chose the investor route for your first initial business or product, and then when you presented your pitch, it sounded like a PowerPoint or some kind of visuals?
It's on Canva. Yeah.
Okay.
So definitely recommend Canva. I've also used Prezi, but Canva's, I think, the easiest to use. And then I've raised, but then I didn't end up taking the money because I didn't end up opening the restaurant. But I raised for the restaurant. I want to say I was like at 300K for that space. So now the next raise that I'll be doing, which is probably going to be just after summer, because as few of my friends say, like all the rich people are on summer vacation, so you can't ask for money then. So it'll probably be like early fall. I'm going to start trying to raise for the CPG line. But you asked something else too. If I've
About-
raised,
And that was your approach to starting your product line or the restaurant investors? Did you do loans? Was it?
oh, so I've bootstrapped, and then I just actually did a tally of all the funding that I've received over the years. Like I've done a crowdfunding campaign for over 50K. I just got my first loan literally last month for 50,000. That was the first loan I've gotten in 8 years. And then all the rest of it has been like grant funding. So total funding that I've gotten for the life of the business is like close to 500,000. So take away, 50,000 of a loan, 50,000 of a crowdfunding campaign. 400,000 was grants for the most part. Accelerators, like this is a great accelerator. There's also a lot of accelerators that provide funding. Like last year I was a part of the Grid 110 Pledge LA accelerator, and that was 25,000. I've gotten a grant from like one grant like to be 50K. That was the biggest one I've ever gotten. But yeah, like some of them are like $1,000, some of them are 2,500. Like it's really all over the place. But I highly recommend applying for grants. And honestly, the storytelling component will be the biggest factor in you receiving grants. Because people don't necessarily like want to hear like I need money or like my business is going to close down. It's like, no, like my business is doing these really awesome things led by this really amazing team, and like you need to make sure we stay alive because like we're super important and relevant for our community. So like really kind of reframing it from like more of like away from the scarcity mindset and more of like I have something really cool and I know other people think it's really amazing too, and like you need to be a part of this and like helping this grow. So really think about your babies that way.
And did you wait to hit that number when you were selling the product, or did you already kind of like do a guerrilla style with whatever you had?
Oh yeah, I've been scrappy since the beginning.
Yeah.
Just got to make it work. I have my background is like my undergraduate degree is in design. So like I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So like I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to like graphic stuff and our website. And then I have an MBA. And so I've been able to kind of like use those two backgrounds to like, launch myself off. Like updating the website on my own and stuff like that. But yeah, I've along the way like applied for grants. 2020 was like the first year where the grants were like significant, where I was like, whoa, like there's a lot going on here,
Right.
a lot of opportunities. So I try to take in this, I haven't been successful in this, but like I try to like once a week or every other week on like a Friday, dedicate a couple hours to just like filling out grant applications. And I have one document that's just like a running document where I can kind of pull from, where I'm like, oh, this question that they're asking is very similar to this other question that I've been asked in the past. And I just need to kind of refine it to make sense for this. So I don't have to sit there and like write from scratch every grant application. But highly recommend taking that approach.
Okay.
I know that we're over time, but I have like, I don't know if this might be a long-winded answer, but why did you go S Corp route versus an LLC?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Mostly for tax purposes. So as an LLC, I was a managing member and I was paying myself, and I had to pay self-employment tax on that. And as an S Corp, I'm actually an employee of the company. Even though I'm still the managing member, I'm an employee. And so now I'm taxed differently, much less than when I was self-employed by the business. That's the main reason, tax purposes.
I was gonna
And
ask something like that really
Yeah.
quick. So when you initially started, did you already go LLC from the get-go, or did it take you doing guerrilla style, then, okay, I need to get this LLC, or was it like, no?
So I started as a sole proprietorship, and I was probably a sole proprietorship for like, and I filed all the paperwork before I started doing any business, because like I couldn't apply to like the farmers markets or the things that I wanted to do without having some of that paperwork in order. And then maybe like 2 months in, I was like, I need to be an LLC. Think about an LLC, there's an $800 fee and it grows once you hit a certain benchmark of sales. And I have had to pay that extra, but I like to think about it as like an insurance policy almost, because it separates you from the business. So you, like, I own a house, I have a car, you know, like, and if something were to happen with my business as a sole proprietorship, I am also liable as personally, so people can come after my personal assets. As an LLC, you're pretty much creating a separate entity that is the business. Like the business is its own entity and you just manage it. And so if something happens within the business and you're being sued for whatever reason, they could only access any of the assets within the business and not any of your personal. So think about it that way. Very important, is you're kind of protecting yourself.
And
Always get insurance.
Okay. Does S Corp have the same covering as the LLC?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it pretty much, the sole proprietorship is the only one where like, it's like, I am you and you are me. We are the same, our business, you know? And then all the other entities create more of a distinct separation.
Awesome.
And like I said, please always get insurance. Like, don't play, just get the insurance, you know? And if you are able to afford it, you have a big contract, always pay for like a good attorney. I had a 3-year contract for a major concert venue. Thankfully, my attorney put in a clause where like I could terminate because it was very one-sided, better on their end. And then it was not great sales and I was able to terminate because he put that in. So like it you know, it's kind of a costly thing, but like when you have big contracts that come your way, you know, attorneys are really great. And then also just always try to have like contracts for things that you do, like collaboration. Collaboration sounds too like, not like Instagram collaborations, but like you're partnering with another business. Like I've done recipe development for like big companies, restaurants, like Sweet Green, for example. And like there always has to be a contract in play. Don't do handshake deals. Always have a contract. All right, I think we're over time now. So thank you all so much. Please, if you ever want to reach out, feel free to. I know Maybelline put my email address in the chat. So I'm happy to help provide any resources, connections, anything like that. And you could always like DM me too on Instagram or whatever's easiest for folks. But I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm excited to see more of you in the cohort. So I know I'll be paired up with some folks there. So excited. I can't wait to try all your foods.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Have a good
Take care,
evening,
everybody.
everyone.
Awesome.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.